My parents announced a family Hawaii trip at their anniversary dinner. Everybody cheered. Then I asked what time the flight was. Dad said, "You're not coming. You stay behind and watch the kids." What I said next, nobody in that room could believe. I was washing dishes when I decided, not metaphorically, not the romantic movie version where the protagonist stares into the middle distance while a single symbolic tear tracks down her cheek. I mean, I was literally standing at the kitchen sink at my parents' house at 9:47 p.m. on a Saturday, still in the dress I'd worn to the anniversary party, elbow deep in soap suds, scrubbing the good china that my mother didn't trust to the dishwasher, the set I'd spent 45 minutes hand polishing before the guests arrived, when it became clear to me, with a finality that felt almost physical, that I was done waiting for my family to see me. 30 people had just watched my father tell me I wasn't invited to Hawaii, not privately, not in a quiet aside, the kind of exclusion that happens in whispers and can be explained away later as a miscommunication, out loud, at a microphone, in front of every person my parents had deemed important enough to attend their 30th anniversary party, people I had spent a week preparing for, place cards I'd hand-lettered in calligraphy, 60 champagne glasses polished one by one, a catering coordination that had taken 11 calls over 3 weeks to assemble. "You don't need to know the flight time, Wendy. You're not going. Someone has to stay behind and watch the kids." 30 pairs of eyes. I had smiled, nodded, excused myself to the kitchen, and now here I was, washing their dishes, while the thing I had been quietly building for 3 years sat on my phone in a folder I hadn't opened in 6 days, waiting for me to be ready. I dried my hands on the dish towel. I was ready. Let me tell you about the Dixon family, because you need to understand the architecture before you understand how it collapsed. My parents, Robert and Carolyn Dixon, had 2 daughters, Megan, 34, 3 years older than me, who had the particular gift of being the kind of beautiful that rooms reorganized themselves around. People turned when Megan entered. Not because she demanded it, because she had, at some point in childhood, simply decided that was how rooms worked, and rooms had agreed. She married Derek Ashworth at 29 in a ceremony that cost $62,000, and produced the kind of photographs that get featured in wedding blogs. They had 2 children, ages 5 and 3, who were photographed constantly and managed rarely. And then there was me, Wendy. My mother's introduction at parties had not changed in 15 years. That's Wendy. She helps out. Not, "This is my daughter, Wendy, who has a degree in visual arts and works in graphic design, and has been described by 3 separate people this year as unusually perceptive." Just, she helps out. Present tense, ongoing, definitional. I had spent my entire adult life as the infrastructure of this family. The one who arrived at 7 a.m. to start cooking while Megan arrived at noon in a sundress and sat down to be served. The one who organized the birthday dinners, coordinated the holiday logistics, remembered everyone's dietary restrictions and allergies and strong opinions about seating arrangements. The one who drove 4 hours to help my mother after her knee surgery while Megan sent flowers and a card that said healing thoughts. I was not bitter about this exactly. Bitter implies a sourness that clings and spreads. What I was, for most of my 20s, was simply invisible, so consistently overlooked that I had begun to overlook myself. Then came the breakup. His name was Callum. We had dated for 2 years, and when he ended it, he said, "You're always just there, Wendy, like furniture." He said it without cruelty, which was somehow worse. He said it the way you describe a factual feature of a room, not a wound you're inflicting. I drove home from that conversation and sat in my apartment for a long time. Then I got up and went for a walk. There was a pawn shop 3 blocks from my apartment, the kind with instruments in the window and a general air of accumulated stories. I walked past it every day without stopping. That night, I stopped. In the display case, a used Canon EOS Rebel T6i with a 50mm lens, a spare battery, and a camera bag with a broken zipper. The price sticker said $180. I bought it. I told no one. I started photographing on weekends, early mornings, the way you start anything you don't want scrutinized. Quietly, privately, before anyone can have an opinion about it. I shot in my neighborhood first, then expanded. I was drawn, without fully understanding why at first, to people who occupied space the way I had always occupied space in my family. People who were present and useful and entirely unnoticed. Elderly women at bus stops, waiting with the particular patience of people who have learned that what they need rarely comes quickly. Overnight janitors finishing their shifts at 6 a.m., leaning against the wall outside hospital service entrances with that specific kind of tired that goes all the way down. Street vendors with calloused hands, setting up their tables in the blue light before the city fully woke. I called the series Invisible Women. I posted anonymously on Instagram under the handle Our Invisible Women Project. I used no real name, no location tag, no identifying information. I posted because the work needed to exist somewhere outside my apartment, not because I expected anyone to find it. 12,000 people found it anyway. The account grew slowly, then faster, the way things grow when they're saying something true that people had been waiting to hear said. I started getting messages. Other women who recognized themselves in the photographs. Curators asking about prints. A journalist who wrote a small piece for an arts blog about the account and its quietly devastating portraits of female invisibility. 8 months ago, an email arrived from a gallery director named Claire Okafor at Coastal Light Gallery in Carmel, California. Her credentials were not subtle. Coastal Light had been operating for 16 years, had launched the careers of 4 photographers who were now represented by agencies in New York and London, and was considered one of the most respected mid-size galleries on the West Coast. Claire herself had 21 years in art curation, had been featured in Art in America twice, and had a PhD in visual culture from UC Berkeley. She had found my account. She had been following it for 4 months. She wanted to offer me a solo exhibition, 15 photographs. Opening night in 6 weeks. Her team would handle framing, lighting, and the event itself. She asked what I needed. I stared at that email for 3 days. I didn't reply. Because good things I had been trained to believe, slowly, reliably, over 31 years, didn't happen to people like me. I was the furniture, the helper, the one who watched the kids. Then came the anniversary party, and my father at the microphone, and 30 pairs of eyes. And I went back to my kitchen sink and dried my hands and opened Claire Okafor's email and typed, "I'm ready. Let's talk." The party had started beautifully. That's the part I need you to understand. It had genuinely been beautiful, and I had made it that way, and I want that on the record. I arrived at my parents' house at 7:15 a.m. the Saturday of the party. The caterers weren't due until noon. I had spent the previous week sourcing centerpiece flowers from a wholesale florist in the next town over, finding calligraphers to hand-letter 60 place cards, and coordinating the dietary preferences of 30 guests with a catering company that had initially told me they couldn't accommodate the gluten-free and vegan requirements, and then changed their position after I sent them a very detailed email. I polished 60 champagne glasses by hand that morning. There was no reason the caterers couldn't have done this, but I had noticed that machine-cleaned glasses left water spots, and my mother preferred them spotless, and the knowledge of that preference lived in me the way a lot of family knowledge lived in me, automatically, without anyone having to ask. My mother came downstairs at 10, assessed the room and said, "You look nice, but stay in the background today. This is about your father and me." She said it the way she always said things like this. Not cruelly, just as fact, the way you tell someone the oven is hot. I said, "Of course." Megan arrived at 6:30, 45 minutes before guests, in a floral wrap dress that she had bought on a trip to Scottsdale the previous month. She kissed everyone hello and found her seat, and someone brought her a glass of wine, and she arranged herself and was photographed by Derek, and everything was as it always was. The guests arrived. The champagne circulated. My father gave a speech about 30 years of marriage that was genuinely moving and which my mother cried at. Real tears, and in that moment they were just two people who loved each other, and I felt glad for them. Then my father tapped his glass a second time. "We have an announcement," he said. The room quieted. He was grinning with the particular pleasure of a man about to deliver something good. "Next week we are taking the entire Dixon family to Hawaii. 1 week at the Four Seasons Hualalai. A second celebration, just the family." The room erupted. Megan made a sound that was essentially a squeal and grabbed Derek's arm. My parents' friends applauded. Someone said, "Oh, how wonderful," and someone else said, "You deserve it," and the champagne level in the glasses seemed to rise with the energy in the room. I felt something lift in my chest. Hawaii, the Four Seasons, a week. I turned to my father. "What time is our flight?" The room went quiet in stages, like a wave moving backward. My father looked at me. He was still smiling, but the smile had shifted into something else. The specific expression of a man who has not yet decided whether this is an inconvenience or a problem. "You don't need to know the flight time, Wendy." He said it clearly, evenly, into the microphone, which was still on. "You're not going. Megan and Derek need a real vacation. You'll watch the children." 30 pairs of eyes. I processed what I was hearing. The words arrived individually before they assembled into a sentence. "You're not going. You'll watch the children." I smiled. I nodded. I said, "Of course." I went to the kitchen and started washing dishes. The guests left at 11. Megan and Derek left at 11:15, chattering about packing and excursion bookings, the children already asleep in the back of their car. My parents went upstairs. The caterers had cleared and gone. The house was mine, and the dishes, and the 60 polished champagne glasses returning to their spots in the cabinet. I finished the dishes at 11:48 p.m. I borrowed my mother's laptop from the kitchen counter to email myself a client file I needed for Monday. She left it out during parties for looking up guest information and had not closed it. Her email was still open in the browser. There was a thread at the top of her inbox, time-stamped 6 days earlier. Subject line, "Hawaii arrangements. Wendy situation." I looked at it for a moment, then I opened it. My mother to Megan. "We need to figure out who watches the kids during Hawaii." I was thinking Wendy. She's always around anyway, and it's not like she has something important going on. Quick pause. If you want more stories like this in better quality, my Spotify's linked in the description. Frankly, it's like having free help. She should be grateful we give her something to do. Megan to my mother. She'll probably feel useful for once. It's kind of sad, honestly, but at least it works out for us. Just don't tell her too early, or she might make plans. My mother to Megan. Good point. We'll tell her at the party. Robert can announce it. That way she can't make a scene in front of everyone. I read it 3 times. Not because I didn't understand it the first time, because I wanted to understand it completely. I wanted to have absorbed every word before I decided what to do with it. It's like having free help. She should be grateful we give her something to do. She'll probably feel useful for once. Tell her at the party. That way she can't make a scene. I took screenshots of every message in the thread, emailed them to myself, closed the thread, cleared the browser history. Then I walked to my car, drove home, and replied to Claire Okafor's email. 6 weeks. 6 weeks between that kitchen sink and the night that changed everything. And I want to tell you those 6 weeks were easy and triumphant, and filled with the satisfying momentum of a woman reclaiming her story. They were not. They were terrifying and logistically complex, and there were at least 3 separate moments when I nearly pulled out entirely. Claire Okafor was remarkable through all of it. She is 61 years old, has worked in fine art curation for 21 years, and has a way of speaking about photographs that makes you understand that she is not being kind when she tells you something is good. She is being accurate. She called me the week after I replied, and we spoke for 2 hours. She asked about the series, the subjects, the technical choices, what I was trying to say, and what I was afraid I was saying. She said, said, "You've been making work about invisibility. Do you understand that you've been visible to 12,000 people for 8 months?" I said I was working on understanding that. She said, "Good, work on it faster." Her associate, a young man named Thomas Park, who had a master's in arts administration from NYU and handled all exhibition logistics, was the person who made the 6 weeks actually function. He coordinated framing with a studio in San Francisco, organized shipping, handled the opening night event details, and sent me a timeline so thorough and well organized that I briefly wanted to hire him for my personal life. The photographs were printed at 24-36 inches on archival matte paper, framed in white oak with museum glass, 15 pieces. When Thomas sent me the first proof photograph of a framed print against the gallery's white wall, I sat down on my apartment floor and stayed there for a while. My therapist, Dr. Angela Rowan, licensed clinical psychologist, 12 years in practice, deeply patient with my particular combination of low self-worth and high competence, had been tracking this process with me for months. She knew about the anonymous account, the gallery email, the decision to reply. She did not know about the anniversary party or the email thread until I told her the week after. She was quiet for a moment when I finished. "You have documentation," she said, "and you have a gallery show, and you haven't decided yet what to do with either of those things." "No," I said. "What do you want to do?" I looked at the window. "I want the people who made me invisible," I said, "to see exactly what I built in the dark." She let that sit. "Okay," she said. "Let's talk about how you do that without it consuming you." We talked for the rest of the session, and the next one, and the one after that. By the time the opening arrived, I had thought about it from enough angles that I knew what I was doing and why, and I had made my peace with the parts of it that were not entirely clean. Opening night, Coastal Light Gallery, Carmel, California. The first Friday in December, 7 p.m. I had not told my family about the exhibition. This was also deliberate. My mother had asked 3 weeks after the anniversary party what I had been up to lately, the question people ask when they want to perform interest without investing attention, and I had said I'd been working on a project. She had said, "That's nice, honey," and moved the conversation to Megan's pregnancy announcement, which had come the week before, and I had let it move. I had, however, mentioned the show to Megan, not directly. I had told a mutual family friend named Paula, a woman who had attended the anniversary party, and who had been in the room for my father's announcement, and who had, I had reason to believe, a very efficient information network, that I had a photography exhibition opening in Carmel in December, and that the gallery had been very supportive. I said it in the tone of someone sharing good news, not baiting a trap. What Paula did with the information was Paula's business. What I knew was that if Megan heard about a gallery opening, she would come. Not out of pride in me, out of the specific anxiety that missing a significant family event might later be held against her. Megan attended things to be seen attending them. The motivation didn't matter. The attendance did. The gallery that evening was everything Claire had promised. 15 photographs on white walls, each one lit from above with the warm precision of carefully placed track lighting that made the images seem lit from within. A string quartet in the corner. Not loud, just present, the way music should be at these things. Champagne, 50 guests, half of them people Claire had invited from her collector network, half of them people who had found the Invisible Women Project account and signed up for the opening on the gallery's website. The centerpiece was a woman I had photographed at a bus stop on a Tuesday morning in March. Elderly, 75 or so, in a good coat that was slightly too thin for the weather, a canvas bag on her lap, looking at something off-frame with an expression that was patient and private and complete. The print was mounted at eye level at the end of the main wall, the first thing you saw when you entered the gallery. Claire had priced it at $3,000. By 7:45 p.m., it had sold. The buyer was a woman named Dorothy Payton, private collector, 15 years in the California art market, known to Claire as someone who bought what she meant to keep rather than what she meant to flip. She had looked at the photograph for a long time before turning to Claire and saying simply, "This one." I was speaking with Thomas near the champagne table when the gallery door opened. Megan walked in. She was still sunburned from Hawaii, a specific uneven burn across her nose and cheeks that happens when you fall asleep at a pool for an afternoon. She was wearing a floral sundress, which in December in Carmel meant she was cold, which meant she'd dressed for the gallery's aesthetic rather than the weather. Derek was behind her, phone out, frowning at the room with the expression of a man who had agreed to attend something and was already calculating when he could leave. They scanned the room. They found me. Megan moved forward with her arms already opening, the full warmth deployed, the performance of a woman who loved her sister very much, in public. "Wendy," she was talking before she reached me. "We've been so worried. We flew in yesterday. We came straight here. We need you to come home. I'm pregnant again. You know how hard the first trimester is for me. I need you." Not, "This is incredible." Not, "I didn't know you could do this." Not even, "Congratulations on the show." Just, "I need you." There it was. The whole 31-year architecture in one sentence. I looked at her. At the sunburn from the vacation I hadn't been invited on. At the sundress chosen for effect rather than warmth. At the room she had walked into without looking at a single photograph on its walls. "Megan," I said. My voice was level. Completely level. The way it is when you've made a decision and you're done deliberating. "You can hire a nanny. Derek makes enough. What you cannot do is hire me, because I was never paid." Her mouth opened. "This isn't a hobby." I gestured at the walls. At the 15 photographs that had taken 3 years and 1 broken relationship and a $180 camera and 12,000 strangers to bring into existence. "I've sold 4 pieces tonight, $8,000. My work has value." I reached into my jacket pocket and took out my phone. "I want to read you something," I said. My mother was standing 10 feet away. She had arrived quietly sometime in the last few minutes in a Burberry trench coat and church pearls, which was how she dressed when she wanted to look like she had arrived somewhere appropriate. She had come. I understood this in real time, watching her take in the room, because Paula had told someone who had told her daughter who had told my mother, and my mother had come to oversee whatever was happening, to be present and in control of the narrative. The gallery had gone completely quiet, not because I had asked for quiet, because rooms do that when something true is about to be said. I read slowly. It's not like she has anything important going on. Frankly, it's like having free help. She should be grateful we give her something to do. I looked up. My mother's face had gone the color of something that had lost its heat. I looked back down. She'll probably feel useful for once. It's kind of sad, honestly, but at least it works out for us. Just don't tell her too early or she might make plans. I put the phone in my pocket. That was an email thread, I said, to the room, to no one, to everyone, between my mother and my sister, written the week before our family's anniversary party, about why I wasn't invited to Hawaii. I paused. 30 guests were there that night when my father announced the trip. 30 guests were there when he told me I wasn't going. I looked around the gallery. There are 30 guests here tonight too. Megan was staring at the floor. Derek had stopped looking at his phone. My mother's mouth was moving with no sound coming out, and I could see her searching for the response that managed this, the one that reframed it as a misunderstanding or an overreaction or a moment of private family business inappropriately aired, and she was not finding it. Dorothy Payton, the woman who had bought my centerpiece photograph 45 minutes earlier, set her champagne glass down on the nearest surface. She began to clap, not performatively, deliberately, the steady, considered applause of a woman who had made her assessment and was expressing it. One by one, the gallery followed. What happened after that was less dramatic and more real, which is how things usually go once the central moment has passed. Megan and Derek left within 10 minutes. No goodbye, no conversation. They simply moved toward the door the way people move when they are trying to exit a situation that has become too large for them to manage. My mother stayed longer. She stood near the back wall for almost 20 minutes, looking at the photographs, not performing looking, actually looking. And when she finally came to find me, she stood in front of me without speaking for a moment. I didn't know about the photographs, she said. I know, I said. They're very good. I looked at her. I know that too. She left without another word, not coldly, just with the specific dignity of a woman who had run out of the kind of language that works in moments like this, and knew it. I stayed until the gallery closed at 10. Claire Okafor found me near the end of the evening near the window, looking at the street outside. 7 pieces sold, she said, including a second piece to Dorothy, which doesn't happen at openings. $14,000, I said. $14,200, she said. And I have 2 collectors asking to be contacted about the remaining work. I looked at the photographs on the walls, at the bus stop woman in her too thin coat, at the janitor with her mop and her 1,000-yard stare, at the street vendor's hands, calloused and capable, framing an orange at dawn. They were always going to find an audience, Claire said, not looking at me. The work was always this good. You just needed to stop waiting for permission. 8 months later, the Invisible Women series has traveled. After Carmel, Claire arranged a show at a gallery in Portland and a group exhibition in Chicago, where 3 of my photographs appeared alongside work by photographers I had been looking at for years. I have representation now, a small agency in San Francisco called Holloway Arts, run by a woman named Dana Shu, who has 20 years in fine art representation and who describes her job as finding the serious ones early. I have not hired a nanny for Megan. She hired one herself, a woman named Claire, who, by all accounts, is excellent and appropriately paid. The difference between Claire and me is that Claire goes home at the end of the day. I go home too now, to my apartment, which has 3 of my own photographs on the wall. Not the famous ones, just the early ones, the ones I shot in my neighborhood in the first month when I was still learning what I was looking for. They're not technically my best work, but they're where it started. My relationship with my parents is what it is. My mother called me in January, 6 weeks after the gallery opening, and said she'd been thinking about the photograph of the bus stop woman. She said it reminded her of her own mother, who had died when my mother was in her 30s. She said this quietly, without preamble, in the middle of a conversation about something else, the way people say the true things, sideways, when they think you might not be paying full attention. I said, I know. I took it because of her. A long pause. You remember her? My mother said, not quite a question. Of course I do, I said. We talked for a while longer. I don't know what it means yet or where it goes. I am holding it carefully. My father has not called. Dorothy Payton's photograph, the bus stop woman in her good coat, hangs in her home in Monterey. She sent me a photograph of it on the wall, a room with high ceilings and good light, the image at eye level, visible from both the doorway and the chair she reads in. She wrote in the email, I look at her every morning. Thank you for seeing her. I think about that a lot. The camera I bought for $180 is in a case in my closet now, retired. I use a Fujifilm GFX now, medium format, the kind of equipment I could not have imagined affording 3 years ago. The lens alone cost more than 4 months of the rent I was paying when this started. I mention this not to impress anyone. I mention it because there is a version of this story that ends in the gallery, with the applause and the emails read aloud and the look on my mother's face, and that version is satisfying. It's the version that gets told, but the real ending is quieter. It's a $180 camera that changed everything. It's 12,000 strangers who found the work before my own family knew it existed. It's a woman at a bus stop who never knew I was photographing her, whose face is now hanging in a room with high ceilings and good light, seen every morning by a woman who paid $3,000 to make sure she wouldn't be forgotten. They had spent 31 years making sure nobody saw me. The irony, the real one, the one I think about sometimes when I'm driving and the light is good, is that the invisibility was the whole point. I was invisible. I photographed invisible women, and the work was seen by everyone.